Thank you all for being here. My name is Apr6. I work as the Deputy Director for the National High-Speed Rail Alliance. And we're in Wisconsin. I'm from Wisconsin. We're going to talk about Wisconsin, but I want to do it in the context of, in a broader context of the whole Midwest, a vision for the Midwest. There are a lot of things that, for us to have the better trains that we want here in our state, that need to happen in other states, especially in Illinois. So I wanted to show you all some of that and explain some of that. So thanks again to you all for being here, and to WisARP for the invitation to speak and for putting these meetings together. You've been doing this for so many years. Thank you for that. I know that putting together meetings like this, there's a lot of moving parts. You got and thanks as well to Susan Foote-Martin, who jumped into her new communications role in WisARP last fall and has really, just really been incredibly helpful there. Speaking again of WisARP, I've been a member of WisARP for most of the last probably 20, 25 years or so. So thank you. And I know that many of you are donors of the High-Speed Rail Alliance, so thank you. We really appreciate your support. I hope that everything that I say today can be taken in the spirit of getting people. What we want to do at the High-Speed Rail Alliance is get people more excited about the possibilities that can come from great trains, all the benefits that we can have, and hopefully that will make more things possible. We'll build political support, we'll create more funding, so that we can all get there faster. So thanks. I think we've seen earlier today, we've seen maps showing the lines in Wisconsin, the new lines in Wisconsin that are under consideration, and it's taken a lot of work to get there from a lot of people, so that's great that we've got those lines on the map, going to places like Madison, Green Bay, Eau Claire. That's very important. But that map that we've seen, good as it is, and let's get those trains running as soon as possible, as good as it is, that's not the last word. And the map up here, I guess maybe it's more of a diagram, comes from the Federal Railroad Administration. The FRA, over a period of years, has done a number of studies in different regions of the United States, looking at what kind of passenger train service we should ideally have. And this diagram shows what they came up with for a 12-state region in the Midwest. And what it shows is, it looks kind of like abstract art here, but what it shows, the brightly colored lines coming out of Chicago in the center there show what the FRA calls pillar corridors. And they're talking about, and this is for the future, as Rich said, anything is possible in the future. They're looking at having a system like this complete ideally in maybe mid-century. So it's going to take some time, but we got to start now, because we know that TCMC and projects like this take a long time to bring them to reality. But on these colored pillar corridors that they have sketched out here, they're talking about much more frequent and fast service than we have today. I don't know if you can see the numbers, but the lowest run is 8 daily round trips, so kind of like what we have for the Hiawatha today, but all the way up to 24 daily round trips. And the line that the FRA identified as having the highest potential is the one shown in purple in this diagram, between Chicago and the Twin Cities, between via places like Milwaukee, Madison, hopefully Eau Claire, across something along the way. They haven't worked out the exact route yet, but that one is one that they designate as deserving 24 trains a day, essentially hourly service. So that is an exciting, I hope you think it's an exciting vision for the future. Our organization, of course, loves that vision, and we work to promote it every day. And I wanted to say a little bit more about the High-Speed Rail Alliance for anyone who might not already be familiar with us. We're a nonprofit member organization, just like WisARP is. We're national, we have our headquarters in Chicago, but I get to do my work from here in Wisconsin, and as an organization, we have 3 top objectives. The first one is that we want to see the establishment of a federal railway program. Much like the interstate highway system took several decades and hundreds of billions in today's dollars to build, to get a really great modern train system, it's going to take a similar level of commitment and support and investment over a fairly long period of time. So that's the first priority or objective. The second one is to get at least one high-speed line running in the United States this decade. And we define high-speed rail. I mean, there's not really a definite agreed-upon definition, but our working definition is that it should be around a 200-mile-an-hour service. It should be electrified, and it should have dedicated tracks, so it's not competing with freight traffic. So we want to get one of those lines, at least one of those lines, up and running in the United States this decade. There are two pretty strong contenders. The project that the state of California has going between San Francisco and LA. They've already built quite a bit of it. And there's you might have heard about a private company called Brightline, which has announced plans to have a bullet train like that running between Las Vegas and LA in time for the Olympics in 2028, the LA Olympics in 2028. So, many of us probably know, maybe some of you have had the experience yourself of riding these great trains in places like Europe and Asia. More and more countries are doing this. I think a lot of other people are aware that they're out there somewhere in the world. But we think that once we have one in the United States, that is going to have just a transformational effect. When your cousin Janet comes back from Vegas and says, "We took this amazing train. We went to LA and for the afternoon and came back on the same day." That's going to sink in with people that, oh, this is something that we could really have in other, throughout the United States. And then our third top objective is investment in the Chicago hub for fast, frequent service to neighboring states like Wisconsin. Let's take a look at the role that Chicago plays. Chicago is not in the geographic center of the country exactly, but it kind of is the center of the country in terms of our rail network. As I hope you can see on this map, we've got rail lines radiating out of Chicago in just about every direction, north, south, east, west to both coasts, into Canada. Potentially you could go all the way down to Mexico. So Chicago is central. Those lines serve hundreds of communities all over North America. And so investment in Chicago's infrastructure, building the capacity there, really benefits a lot of people and really has a great payback. This map zooms in on Chicago, and Chicago, if you know Chicago at all, you kind of can't miss the rail infrastructure in Chicago. There's the L overhead and things like that. It's kind of baked into Chicago. But a lot of that infrastructure is not even from the last century; it's from the century before that. So it was really designed for another time. It's still very useful in many cases, but it could use some updating. Some of it needs to literally be fixed up, but also modernized. So what we envision in Chicago are the bright green lines. We think that those corridors should be converted to electrified passenger dedicated lines. So there's several of those that you can see there. And then the purple line is kind of what's missing, essentially. There are some connections, a relatively small number of connections that we could make in the city of Chicago that would dramatically increase Chicago's ability to, increase Chicago's capacity for providing train service in all directions. And in addition to that greater capacity, we could make some connections to some other key places, especially O'Hare International Airport. I'm not sure where O'Hare stands currently in the rankings, but it's often the top busiest airport in the country, or one of the top 2 or 3, something like that. So how great would it be if you could get on a train in a place like Eau Claire, take the train to the terminal in O'Hare to get on your flight to France or China or wherever it is that you're going. Or, in reverse, if people coming to the Midwest could be flying in from another part of the US or from another country, land at O'Hare, walk through the terminal, get on a train to Peoria or Indianapolis or Madison or wherever it is that they're going. There's just huge potential there. So we call that Crossrail. That we want to, we're working to get that in the state of Illinois' plans. So this obviously zooms out again, and if we build that, if we revitalize Chicago, modernize Chicago's rail network, we could have a network like this. In some ways, this map shows, it's another look at that more abstract diagram that the FRA showed. On this map, the yellow lines are essentially those pillared corridors with fast, frequent service, and there's about a half a dozen of them, kind of around the clock, going in all directions, including through Wisconsin. What this map shows, if you can imagine trains running on these corridors with a minimum of 8 a day, and maybe as many as 24 a day, how useful that would be. Even if you, for example, if you wanted to go from somewhere in Wisconsin to Indianapolis, or maybe you come into Chicago from Wisconsin, have a brief layover, and then you just get the next train there. If you've ever tried this with the current system, you might have to spend the night in Chicago before you can catch the next train. So a system like this would be just much more practical and useful to a lot of people. We are the High-Speed Rail Alliance, and so I wanted to say just a little bit about how we think about that. Of course, we're excited about fast trains, really fast trains, 100 or 200 miles an hour. That's an important part of the mix. But we also see the importance of the whole rest of the system. And the way that we break this down is, you've probably heard the 80-20 rule that gets applied in a lot of different contexts, and we use it too. And what we suggest is that in thinking about these networks for the future, that we should be thinking about having about 20% of the lines be high-speed lines, and then served by 80% of the rest of the system would be the rail lines like the ones that we know today, as well as good connections to buses and airports and to everything, really. So it's a mix. So, we're not saying that there should be high-speed trains to every city and state in the country, or to every city and town in the country, but there should be core lines, high-speed lines. And you can do a lot, with those other lines. That map of Wisconsin is fine. We'll get there. But those other lines, even though they're not operating at such high speed, high frequency goes a long way. Again, if people know that they don't have to wait a whole day for a train, but if the one at 8 in the morning doesn't work, they can get one at 10 in the morning or whatever. That's very practical. And this map shows the state of Wisconsin, of course, and the solid lines, if you can see those, are the lines that WisDOT has brought in corridor ID funding to study and to begin planning for. So those are very important. Let's get those first. This map also shows the dashed lines show additional service that we think that Wisconsin eventually will need. There's another way into Madison. There's that lakefront line that Rich mentioned, and a few others. And this, I think, also kind of shows the 80-20 principle. Probably, even if we got everything we ever wanted, Wisconsin would only have one high-speed line running through it, one somehow serving the communities between Chicago and the Twin Cities, and everything else that you see on the map, those colored lines, would be conventional rail lines or bus lines. So it's it takes that kind of 80-20 mix to get this vision that we are talking about. So we've looked at maps of the whole region, we've looked at maps of the states. Another thing that the Alliance tries to do is, and in fact one of the most important things that we try to do is to be a resource for elected officials and others working for the service in local communities. And one of, this map shows something that we produced in support of the KRM effort to get trains of some sort serving, well, they already do serve Kenosha, Wisconsin, but then up to Racine, and then to there from Milwaukee, or to Milwaukee from there. And what we did, we produced this, we're making an effort to just get greater capacity between Chicago and Milwaukee, and looking at all the options. So we've created this diagram. It's just sort of an example of work that we've done to show, hopefully clearly, where the problems are and where possible solutions might be. There's a shaded area in the middle, which is an area of really high congestion. That's what our staffers and thank you again, have to contend with the congestion there. But there are other ways that theoretically we could make this work through a line that's on about UP along the lakefront there. One way to think about this, if we're ever going to get to 24 trains a day, we're going to have to figure out some way through this bottleneck, and that can be an important way through it. And so that's one of the reasons that we've done this. And I wanted to just briefly say something about the two stations shown there at the bottom, which are in Chicago. Chicago Union Station and the Ogilvie Transportation Center are, they're thought of as being really completely separate, as if they have nothing to do with one another. But if you've actually been down there, they're really close together. They're about 2 blocks apart. They're closer than terminals within O'Hare Airport. And so part of what we are advocating for is an actual physical connection between those stations, covered walkway or some kind of way to get easily from one station to the other. so that, maybe the way that this works in the future is that some of the trains to Milwaukee and beyond leave from Union Station as they do today, and for some of the others you go over to the, what is now Oakley Station and go via Kenosha and Racine. So these are possibilities for the future. Supporting trying to provide material like that, be responsive when local leaders contact us. We try to do that in other ways, and I have photographic evidence of at least some of it. I don't know how well you can see this photo, but the top photo there shows a tour that we did at Chicago Union Station last May. This is a great idea from County Supervisor Tim Kiefer, who's in back, and also a new WisARP officer as of last fall, right? Tim had the great idea of organizing a delegation of Dane County supervisors. Tim also led the way in getting Dane County to become a municipal member of the High-Speed Rail Alliance, which we appreciate. So we organized a tour, and there's a picture from it. Our executive director, Rick Harnish, is over there on the left. Our board president is there on the right. The two women there to one side are two other Dane County supervisors. And so we brought this group down to show what we could do, how this could work, what needs to happen in and around Chicago Union Station and over at Ogilvie a couple blocks away. We try to, show what is possible. So that's one example. We have some great young volunteers. These young guys there in that lower photo took part in a legislative day at the Wisconsin Capitol at the beginning of February that was co-organized by WisARP and All Aboard Wisconsin and the High-Speed Rail Alliance. They helped with briefings that we did with state lawmakers. We were able that day to address either lawmakers or it was mostly staffers, but we think we got to about 25% of the legislators in Wisconsin, or at least the people who represent those districts. And as I said, a lot of this comes down, at least at this stage, there's very important work that needs to move forward in Wisconsin, but a lot depends on Illinois, and so we're really focused on Illinois right now. The High-Speed Rail Alliance led the way in getting legislation introduced in Illinois, which created a new High-Speed Rail Commission, which has started its work. And there, alongside this commission, there is a really strong passenger rail caucus in the Illinois General Assembly. And so we're hoping that the commission, which our executive director, Rick Harnish, serves on, along with many others, appointees by the governor and the head of Chicago Metro, people like that. We hope that they will provide a vision. They're looking really closely at the possibility of what we consider true high-speed rail between Chicago and St. Louis right now, a kind of version of that core line that could go through Wisconsin someday. They're looking at that for Illinois already, or beginning to look at that, and then building the support for that vision in the legislature. You might have heard about the so-called fiscal cliff that a lot of transit agencies locally are facing. And if you're not familiar with that, what it refers to is the fact that when the pandemic hit, federal aid was given to transit agencies all over the country to help with this steep drop-off in ridership that they saw. That aid is coming to an end, and so it's called the fiscal cliff. What we are advocating is that in Illinois, because of the central role that Chicago plays, that Illinois not just put a Band-Aid on that problem by putting money into what we already have, but by really taking the opportunity to rethink the whole system for the state of Illinois, and coming up with a statewide rail program that makes great trains central to it, just like highways, just like air travel. Come up with a whole new system, and then invest in that. We're working for more funding for IDOT's rail division so that they can hire more people to get this work done, and also for hundreds of millions of dollars to be reallocated to actually build the infrastructure that will be needed to do this. Here's another map of the Midwest, with this great, fast, frequent service. But the new layer here is time. Each different in shading on the map represents about an hour of travel. And so again, this kind of gives another look at what we could have. It would be amazing, wouldn't it, if you could go from the Twin Cities to Chicago in 3 hours and cross 3 color zones there, or if you could go from Madison to Detroit or Indianapolis in a few hours. This would be such a dynamo for the Midwest, and so let's build it. Let's at least start working toward it, start laying the groundwork for this now. And don't let anyone tell you that we don't have the population density in the United States to do this. That's an argument that we hear fairly often. Like, oh, France, China, they can do it. If we had a system like, or regardless of whether or not we had a system like this, there are about 60 million people who live within these rail lines. That's as much as some whole countries, like Spain and France, that have really well-developed, advanced high-speed rail systems. We could have that too, and make it serve and benefit all of those people, and make something that's much greater than the sum of the parts. If we build a system like that, everything basically just comes up roses. It will help the economy thrive. It will help us put much less carbon and other pollution into the atmosphere. It makes it possible for people to just get together, gives people many more options for what they can do and how to see each other. It's just one real world example of what we can do even with the trains right now. That photo up there in the upper left, Mark and I happened to run into each other at Union Station one day last summer. The magic of trains. Mark, in addition to helping us out here today, some of you may know that Mark volunteers for, 4 or 5 different rail advocacy organizations. It can seem like Mark is everywhere. Mark is literally everywhere. that was my takeaway. Yeah. There's lots more where this came from. There are some web addresses there, which I hope you can read. We have a whole page and more about Wisconsin, hsrail.org/Wisconsin. My email address is there, chris@hsrail.org. If you have questions in the future, let me know. But while we're here together right now, if we have questions,
could you give us a short update of what the funding is for the seniors at Union Station?
Sure. I don't remember the exact numbers offhand, but about the federal government has announced awards of about $100 million for Chicago Union Station, which is great. And this is, as I understand it, this is all more or less for the building itself, to improve the ventilation and the lighting, and just make it easier for people to move into or within the station and get in and out of the station. That's great, very important first step. But it doesn't yet address, we're still seeking funding to work on some of the infrastructure in the few miles around Union Station, which is equally important.
Is that a lot of these corridor studies in Wisconsin are not considering the fact that there can be through rail operation in Chicago. And it worries me that when we're not allowing for the fact that we can be running trains direct from Green Bay to St. Louis, is not being studied, despite the fact that using those platforms to provide those very trains is being studied, but it's in another state. So it's in another state, so we never talk to each other. Now I know that's a gross simplification, but surely those studies cannot be complete if through running at Chicago does not form a significant part of it.
Right. I think your question gets at, to me, that gets at the importance of a federal railway program to coordinate all of this. Because the way things are structured right now, states they're really siloed. It would take a kind of extraordinary level of goodwill and cooperation between the states, and despite changes of governors and the shiftings of the political winds to get things done. If the interstate highway system had been done like that, we probably wouldn't have it. We got the interstate highway system built because the federal government basically sat down and said, okay, here's what's going to happen. We're going to pay for most of it. And if you, the states, will build to our specifications, we'll pay for most of it. And so we have this really comprehensive system that we do. And so we need that for rail. and it needs to take the big picture view of very important details, like the ones that you mentioned, the platforms at Chicago Union Station and the capacity to have through-running trains. Not everything should have to terminate at a station like Union Station in Chicago. Yes?
Isn't the elephant in the room getting the major freight railroads on board with adding 8 to 10 passenger trains a day on their single track lines?
Yes, that getting the cooperation of the freight railroads is really important, and one of the things that the Alliance says is that whatever we do has to make sense for the big freight railroads. For those who aren't familiar with it, they're called the Class 1 railroads. So yes, that's important. And there's been a success story in Illinois that I think kind of speaks to this, maybe a sort of way through this difficulty. And that success story is that, and this is something that the Alliance worked on for years, especially at the early stages, we were part of the impetus for this. But Illinois did close work for years with the Union Pacific to improve the tracks between Chicago and St. Louis. They were in really bad shape. The signals and other equipment needed to be replaced. There were grade crossings that could be eliminated. And so over a period of years, that work got done. And that track is now, I haven't had a chance to ride it yet. Maybe other people have. But all right, there we go. But it's in much, much better shape now. And though this doesn't yet meet our definition of high-speed rail, they've got trains running 110 miles an hour or up to 110 miles an hour between Chicago and St. Louis on tracks that are owned by the Union Pacific. So that to me is an example of a kind of win-win for both passenger and freight.
Most of the major railroads that come in and out of Chicago are multiple main tracks, and they're 60, 70 freight trains a day on these lines. How are they possibly going to get up 6 or 8 or 10 each way? Fast trains trying to navigate through there without massively expanding those tracks.
Well, I don't know if there's a one-size-fits-all answer to that question. Yeah, it's complicated. But that's part of the impetus behind what I mentioned, the cross-rail idea. That helps to sort of create some new ways through Chicago, so it helps get around some of those bottlenecks. In some ways, it's adding tracks alongside what are currently bottlenecks. There's a really important, going back again to that multi-state problem, there's a critical section that is often called the south of the lake section, which is basically the 50 miles or so east of Chicago. And in that little section of just 50 miles, the rail lines that are there now, they pass through 3 states. And, some of them are in Illinois, Indiana, a little in Michigan. So you have 3 states to cooperate. There's all kinds of freight in there. It's complicated. We need to streamline that. Build some, redo the infrastructure so that passenger trains can pass through there. And then once we do that, that opens up the possibility for much better, faster, more frequent service between the two. I was saying this is going to be easy. Where's the money got to come from? It's got to come from a shift in priorities. We essentially don't even ask what our highway system costs us. It can cost tens of billions of dollars to redo, just to add a couple of lanes to existing interstates for maybe 10 or 15, 20 miles. We put a lot of money into transportation and we're not getting great results. So this is politically very difficult, but we need to rethink that. And yes, though it's an improvement, that 110 mile an hour peak between Chicago and St. Louis, it's you don't get that speed the whole way. And this is why we believe that eventually what we need to do is to build dedicated rights of way for high-speed trains that would only have passenger traffic on.
My perception is you have to walk before you can run. And along that, in the Twin Cities, I just got a map from MnDOT. I don't know if it was 20 or 30 massive projects we've been doing in the highways, just in the metropolitan area. And whenever I get these, I send an email back asking, how much do these cost? Never an answer. People have no idea, like a bridge costs $250,000. One was put in near my father in South St. Paul, and it was $220,000 to do this bridge and putting the lights. But people have no idea, so part of that is an educational piece and rethinking. I agree. I do think though, like the second train between the US and Chicago, once people ride it and they see there's a second train, then third and fourth will happen. Just like Wisconsin has the best example, it's the Hiawatha. The Hiawatha started with one train, and I don't know the history as much as you people do when we were here, but I think you have to start someplace. I don't think we'll have high-speed rail tomorrow, and I've ridden a lot of high-speed